Okay. We have some great questions from our participants. Let's try to get through a few if we can. How can organizations maintain strategic focus on their core purpose while building AI ROI models that drive competitive advantage without compromising sustainability commitments?
So I think there was a broader question also about sustainability. I mean, I think we need to sort of think about this in several perspectives, and let me offer you two. One is, this feels to me like 1913, right? Ford Model T was invented in 1908, right? At the time it was invented, there was no street lights, there were no stoplights, there were no regulations for seat belts, nothing like that, right? There were no mechanics, there was no gas stations. All that infrastructure had to be built to support it. And if you did a straight line projection of how big an engine you would need in 2020, let's say in the Ford F-150, which was 650 horsepower versus the 8 horsepower engine, you say, oh, I need an engine the size of a Detroit city block to be able to run the F-150 in 2020. But there was 100 years of engineering that happened. And so I think we're just at the stage of this moving out of the lab into the engineering space. And we're getting more efficient with algorithms. We're getting more efficient with data, more efficient with our data centers and so forth. So that's happening. And so the second part of my answer is that the overall global footprint of energy usage in data centers, including all of AI data centers, is less than 2%. Right? Cars, shipping. Airlines take way more energy. So when people get to me like saying, what about the energy? I'm like, stop driving your car, right? Or switch to an electric car. That might have a bigger impact than trying to compromise on AI. And the AI usage is increasing. So per unit, the cost is decreasing, but there is a lot of increase. So we will see this 2% increase for sure. But I think people misplace and overly index on the sustainability, at least in the energy side of things, around AI when there's much bigger things for us to go after. In that sense, if I heard the question correctly.
Yeah, Stephen, anything to add on that
one? Yeah, I just want to build on what Kareem said. And I would add that I really feel like it's NVIDIA that's going to be largely contributing to sustainability, because it's the power consumption of chips at the heart of all this that that is currently driving the projections of electricity consumption. And I agree completely. NVIDIA has not been focused on the power consumption of their chips as it relates to AI and data centers for long enough to really see progress, but undoubtedly they are working on it. But I do, it really bugs me when I see super trivial uses of AI, because I do know that we are, crisping the planet for the use of it, and it just as on an individual level, it bothers me when I see that. But I do agree that things will get more efficient over time.
Well, here is a more specific question for sure. Financial analysis is a use case. Finance demands rigor and precision. Hidden errors can have dire consequences. Is AI up to that task? How do you manage it to tasks it can handle?
Yeah. Look, 2 years ago, it wasn't up to the task. Now it is, because what's happened is that we have shifted so there are two different computing paradigms. Computing paradigms we all grew up in until 2017 was a deterministic paradigm, right? Where basically 2 + 2 always equal 4 in your Excel spreadsheet. Generative AI in particular, but AI in general is a probabilistic model, right? It gives you a probability of the answer with some error bars around it. And so when the model basically gives you an answer, you should say it's in some probability distribution of accuracy. Okay. And now you can turn up or down the temperature of these models to give you more or less things. But by default, these probabilistic models and these large language models and large image models were not designed, are not capable of doing deterministic calculations. And the breakthrough was, it's known as unhobbling. You connect these models to deterministic machines, like a Python interpreter. So what happens is if you now put a spreadsheet into ChatGPT or into Claude, right, and you say, give me a trend analysis, give me this or that, it takes your language, natural language, writes Python code, which is good at writing Python code, and then spins up a Python machine which interprets the data, does the analysis in a deterministic fashion, sends it back for interpretation. So what was a problem 3 years ago, 2 years ago is no longer a problem now with these machines. But you need to know that your IT departments need to actually have that capability set up. I was talking to a very large pharma company, and their IT department had not turned that on yet. I'm like, this is like bad behavior by your, because, well, we don't know about data privacy. I'm like, those are all damn solved problems. Do your job. And because your users are going to start doing this and then get wrong answers, right? And so so that's the thing. And so in our course, we use this tool called Julius.ai, which is a vibe data scientist. You upload data, and you can run very advanced models in plain English. Now, here's the thing: the trap you will fall yourself into is that you will start to believe the answers and do malfeasance statistically. Because even if you tell the model to run the regression, interpretation is going to be up to you, right? And understand what the limitations of that kind of analysis is going to be. So this is where you need to actually understand, if you're going to use it for this kind of advanced forecasting, build a REMA model, do all that kind of stuff, you actually need to understand how these models work. The machine will gladly run it for you and do it, all that kind of stuff for you. But you need to know, is this the right model for me to use here? Should I do something differently? How do I interpret that? And that's where the humans are not off the hook a bit matters.
Critical point. Yes. Check the work. Stephen, anything to add there?
I do. And again, building on what Kareem said, these capabilities in the hands of experts are very powerful, because they know how to direct them and then interpret and check them. And as Kareem pointed out on one of his slides, in the hands of people who are not experts, they can be dangerous. And so it is important to keep that in mind. I'd also want to point out that most of this conversation has been about generative AI capabilities, but there is a very broad toolbox called AI, and generative AI is one tool in one section of that toolbox. And there are a whole range of problems and opportunities for companies where generative AI is just, completely inappropriate to apply it. And if you are not thinking about the full toolbox, you are really limiting, and if your company's not thinking about the full toolbox, you are really limiting your options, and also potentially going to apply the wrong approach to the problem and get bad outcomes.
Okay, well, this is a question that kind of builds on this last one. It's interesting. You framed AI as reducing the cost of expertise. If expertise is no longer a bottleneck, what becomes the new scarcest resource in organizations, and how should boards prepare for that shift?
That's my PhD level class that I'm trying to figure out. No, I think it's a really good question, and that's actively my research agenda right now, to actually go say, if the whole basis for companies has been accumulation of expertise and having an advantage on some expertise, supply chain, marketing, manufacturing, you name it, science, you name it, discovery, you name it. And now all of a sudden, all of that is getting commoditized and becoming widely available. What is the new bottleneck? I think my speculation is the bottleneck is going to be adaptation of these tools, right? And designing new workflows to take advantage of these tools. And then the other discussion about hallucinations and falling asleep at the wheel and those kinds of things will matter.
Stephen?
But it's still to be TBD. I'm open to ideas.
Kareem, I actually thought about your book in relation to this, which is, building out data networks and business networks. Is a big moat for companies. And so I would I would point to Kareem's book for insights here. I also want to make. I feel like I'm right in the analogy business in this call, but I want to make an analogy back to the internet era. When the internet era started, we didn't have any role models for what it looked like to be an internet company. Everyone was really starting from the same point, but that is not the case today with AI. And Kareem, very articulately talked about Ant Financial, but Ant Financial, Google, Netflix, Amazon, et cetera, are examples of companies that are operating, what feels like light years ahead of almost every other company on the planet. And they are a role model for what AI organizations look like at scale. And Kareem's book really, talks about how data and algorithms, et cetera, are at the center of that with people around the outside. And that is very different from almost every other company that, that's out there. But those role models do exist. And so where it goes, I'm looking forward to seeing your research, Kareem, but I think your book provides a roadmap towards it.
Yeah, thank you.
How should a CEO engage with AI in their everyday work?
I mean, if you use your phone every day, you should be using AI every day. That's yes.
Yeah. Ralph, I'd say three things. One is use AI every day and try to increase your skills in using that. I would dedicate yourself to learning and take courses. The NACD director class that Jen posted the link for, Coursera has lots of courses on using this. And then I would dedicate at least 10 minutes a day, but probably not a ton more because there's so much hype out there. But a consistent read of what's going on at the forefront of AI, I think is something that would be really important for people to do.
How should we rethink competitive advantage of our rivals if AI capabilities are advancing every 6 months? Is the benchmark no longer the peers, but the pace of AI itself?
I think it's both the pace of AI itself and your competitors with AI. If you feel like they're getting ahead of you, then you're going to be in trouble because they can accelerate way faster than you will. And also, what new types of entrants are showing up.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kareem. We have not talked about AI native companies. If you think back to the internet era, Amazon was a very small company for quite some time, and companies like Barnes and Noble and Walmart didn't see it as a threat at all until it was. And so, I think it's very important to keep focus on what's happening within your existing competitor base, but there will be new entrants. And I'll also give you a historical perspective, which is if we are in fact in the equivalent of 1998 today as it relates to AI versus the internet, at that point in history in 1998, Mark Zuckerberg was in middle school. And so, your future competitor may, currently be going through puberty right now.
I've got questions. Our participants have questions, but I think we need to leave it here. I believe it's time to wrap up. What powerful and wonderful insights and learning for all of us. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you for everyone who joined us today.